Welcome into the ArtGibbs Sports Business Podcast. This is episode 20. And in this episode, we're going to talk about EF Education First Pro Cycling Team and their very risky jersey choice in the Giro d'Italia. All right, so welcome in. First things first, we've got a question here on the board. If you're listening, you're not going to see that, but it is. And if you're watching, you can't see that. Hold on a second. There it is. So it is, who was the first corporate sponsor of the Olympics? All right. Who was the first corporate sponsor of the Olympics? If you know the answer to that, just go ahead and write that in the comments below, or you can reach out to us on Twitter at ArtGibbs Now. At ArtGibbs Now is the Twitter. And again, real quick before we get started, just as another housekeeping item, we've got, if you're interested in more purely finance kind of concepts, we've got the ArtGibbs channel on YouTube. So we've got our podcast channel, which is the ArtGibbs Sports Business Podcast. I believe that's what it is. You can search that on YouTube and it'll come up. I can't remember the exact name off the top of my head. That's anyway. But if you go to just ArtGibbs on YouTube, there's financial videos there. They're more, again, purely finance and a lot of financial topics. You'll find videos there. They're real short, 5 minutes. They're kind of helpful. We have a lot of students who use them, and it's a great community there. You can in the comments, if you've got questions, you can reach out and either we'll respond or another viewer will respond. The viewership there is really fantastic and knowledgeable, big time. We've had discussions on treasury bonds and payment in kind bonds and things like that there on that channel. So again, that's ArtGibbs, and that's sort of separate, or it's different. It's another channel besides our ArtGibbs Sports Business Podcast channel. So that's a little housekeeping. And again, the question, first corporate sponsor for the Olympics. I'll give you a hint. It's a well-known sponsor in the Olympics. It's a well-known corporate sponsor. You'll probably get it. If you just throw out a guess, I would say just throw out a guess. You'll probably get it. It's one of a few of the main sponsors. So, and that was, I'll just tell you, since the question is who, I'll just mention that it was in 1928 that the first corporate sponsor came on board. So if that's helpful or whatever, you've got that. All right, so the topic at hand today is the use of a kind of interesting jersey by the EF Education First Pro Cycling Team. Of course, that's Jonathan Waters' team. That's the team that always had Argyle when they were the Slipstream team, or in Chipotle and all of that kind of stuff. And obviously Jonathan Waters has, I would say, a good fashion sense, or he's into fashion. He's into, Italian clothing and all of that stuff. He's mentioned that in his book. And they, in their early days, they always had Argyle sort of going through the jerseys, and there was always a thread of Argyle in the jersey throughout their time. Again, it's a pro cycling team, and so they've always had kind of a, Jonathan Waters as the leader of the team has always kind of had this understanding that there's jerseys are fashion. There's a fashion component to the jerseys, and anybody that rides bikes will tell you, there's one of my friends has a Paul Smith designed helmet. The famous British designer, and that's it's in the culture. I mean, gear is part of the culture, and fashion is part of the culture, and companies like Rafa have done so well because of their fashion sense and some of that. And of course, that kind of goes without saying. I mean, performance is the number one thing in terms of these clothing in racing. Performance is number one, but fashion is kind of a close second. So that's a little bit of a backstory on Jonathan Waters and the Slipstream Pro Cycling Team. So that brings us to the 2020 Giro d'Italia. So the Giro d'Italia, of course, is run by RCS Sport, which is a different company than the ASO, than the Armory Sport, which runs the Tour de France, the Paris-Nice, Paris-Roubaix, all that kind of stuff. This is a different company, and they do the Giro d'Italia, and they do some other events, but and they've been, they've had different opinions on monetization than the ASO, and they've run things a little bit differently, and they are a separate entity there. And they have sort of that separate way of monetizing. And if you subscribe or watch on NBC Sports and that kind of thing, you'll notice the Giro is separate. You don't get that as well. You get many of the other events, but you don't get the Giro. And they're, again, they have separate TV deals, contracts, separate entity, different promoter, basically. But this Giro d'Italia in 2020, which of course was after the Tour de France this year, which is rare. Obviously, normally the Giro's in May. But the Giro this year was after the Tour de France, and EF Education First, which is the current sponsor of the team that's owned and run by Jonathan Vaughters, its jerseys are pink. There's a lot of pink in the jersey. And the leader's jersey in the Giro d'Italia is the pink jersey, just like in the Tour de France, it's the yellow jersey. And the organizers of the Giro, this RCS Sports, did not like that. And they gave EF Education First a mandate to change the jerseys to a different jersey. And in doing that, instead of just simply inverting the colors or something like that, they went out and they actually partnered with Palace Skateboard Company out of California and Rafa, who was, manufacturing the jerseys. But Palace was engaged in the design. And they really went out there with an out there design. And I'll put a picture up in here. So if you're watching, you'll see the picture. If you're listening, of course you won't see it, but you can Google it. And also you can see on our Twitter, we posted about the jersey there. So again, at ArtGibbs now, you can see on the Twitter where we posted that jersey if you're interested in seeing what it looked like. But again, it was very wild, and it garnered a lot of attention. And here we are discussing it on a podcast, a whole podcast sort of dedicated to it. There were many articles about it. The Wall Street Journal had an article, kind of, is this the ugliest or is this the greatest jersey ever? We posted that on our Twitter. Again, you can go find that on our Twitter at ArtGibbs now. Jonathan Vaughters tweeted, October 9th, amazing how fast it sold out. Don't think I've ever seen anything like this in cycling ever. And so that brings us sort of to so Jonathan Vaughters tweeted that out. It was all over Twitter. I had friends, in the cycling community, send me the pictures of it. It really blew up. It was a risk, but because it was a risk in a place where, like cycling, where there's not a lot of that taken in terms of, a jersey design or something like that, this really was a big thing. And, the jersey sold out very quickly, as mentioned by Jonathan Vaughters, on StockX.com. There's jerseys there of this design listed for, $750 if you want to buy one. They're totally sold out, $750 for the jersey. And let's see. And so again, that fervor is why we're talking about that now. And to kind of go back to that Wall Street Journal article, is it the ugliest? Is it the greatest? Well, the fact that these types of articles are being written, the fact that we're having this podcast right now about this, really shows that they won. It is the greatest. It was a great move. And it was a great move because we're all talking about it. It was a great move because it was a great move. You can see it sold out so quickly. It got people talking. It got people going. And cycling, of course, has some, issues or questions that, how do you best monetize it? And that comes up quite a bit. And this is an example where, jersey sales can be a real revenue stream for someone, somehow, however it's set up. In the NFL, the player gets about 2/3 of the jersey revenue that the NFL gets. Now, the NFL is a licensor. They license the ability to make, an NFL jersey to a third party, to a manufacturer, and they go out and they manufacture this jersey. The NFL doesn't doesn't get all of the revenue that you would get if you sold a jersey, but they do get licensing revenue, and of that licensing revenue, 2/3 of that goes to the player themselves, and 1/3 goes to the players union and to some other areas as well. And so, just as an example of some of those revenue numbers, Peyton Manning is leads the retired players at $950,000. Brady tops out the current players, or at least a year or two ago, at just over $2 million. Antonio Brown, when he was with the Steelers, $1.5 million. So that's the 2/3 of the licensing revenue. Now, cycling, of course, the sponsors change over so much. And that's kind of what I want to dig into here just a little bit. So you've got these sponsors that change over a fair amount. One of the things we've talked about is this idea that as these sponsors change over so rapidly, there's a situation where you as a merchandiser can't maximize the dollars when, someone is a fan of the team, and then the player leaves or the team changes colors, then these jerseys sort of become relics. They sort of go off into the distance. But with this, and there's some truth to that. If you want to buy a jersey of, sort of your favorite team, it's hard to do because the sponsors change over so frequently and the riders change over, etc. So there's not really a lot to buy into in that sense. But in this case, this was a big jersey change for a short time, and it created this massive fervor. They couldn't keep them in stock, and it was a massive win. So there's another side to it where when you have these limited edition, let's say, jerseys, there's a level of collectability that comes with them. There's a level of style that comes with them. People see them and want to get them. It's the old Mape jerseys, and I'm probably saying that wrong. The old jerseys that Marco Pantani had. They're collectible. They're loved, and they kind of go away. So that's another option for teams, in this type of environment where they could come in, they've got their standard jersey, and then maybe there's a limited edition jersey or a jersey for a specific race. And of course, that comes into a situation where the race has to be okay with that, or the organizers have to be okay with that. But that could create some revenue stream for these cycling teams, so they go to the Tour de France and they launch a jersey that has some insignia on it, has maybe a little bit of more yellow on it, has something like that, and that is a limited edition, comes out prior to the race. The team, depending on how well it does in the race, will probably be a contributing factor to how many of those they sell. But again, this is an area where you see a team like Slipstream or EF Education First, or et cetera, et cetera. It's changed many times over the years, but still in this limited edition setting with a sort of a well-designed jersey, are able to sell a pretty large amount, a significant amount, more than they thought they would, and now they're trading on the secondary market at $750 a jersey. 7 to 10 times what a jersey like that would sell for, with a standard kind of, markup margin. And so, it's an interesting thing in an environment where the teams are always searching for revenue, and they're, dependent on their bike sponsorship, or selling their bikes after the season, EF included, in an effort to get revenue. And they're selling bikes in the off season and things to make money. I mean, they're getting a new bike the next year, but they're selling that bike to help, fund the team. This is an example of, another tactic in production of a limited edition jersey, something like that. You could get some collectability. It brings the fans in. If you're a fan of a team or a rider or something like that, and they offer this limited edition jersey for a race or for, a part of a season or something like that, that could be something where people buy it, people collect it, and the limited edition helps it to sell. It helps it to sell at a good price, and it helps to cap your production so you're not, going out and doing a massive run. And it provides sort of that breakup between, year after year after year of slight change. There's a limited edition in the middle, or there's a collectible edition in the middle at some point. It's a very interesting thing. And I think in cycling and in the cycling business, it's something to take note of for event organizers, for people studying the sport, for the teams, especially the product manufacturers. It's something to look at, that this team was able to do this. They were fined for it, but they did it in response to the organizers of the Giro telling them they had to change. They changed, and in doing so, they sort of knocked on the door of a very interesting situation that other teams, riders, etc., could benefit from. These teams are always getting new gear. Many times they're getting sponsorship in kind, so they're getting gear in lieu of potentially additional cash payments, and they're getting gear that's already customized for their team. And these manufacturers that are sponsoring them, they're already making the gear. They're making it for them at a pretty low run production rate in terms of quantity. And now here's a situation where you could lower that quantity slightly, redesign, give to the team could sell, or team could license someone else to sell, etc. But there's something there in terms of that revenue. And it's interesting to see. Of course, Jonathan Waters, who's been in the business a long time and, is respected in that sense, especially when it comes to, business, the business of the sport as a whole. This is a pretty big thing to take note of, I think. And, again, we'll throw the jersey up on our Twitter if you want to go look at it, if you are listening. And so you can see it there. It's a pretty impressive jersey. But anyway, it's just something to think about as you look at cycling, ways of making revenue, that this jersey comes out. Big success. Very cool. Anyway, all right, so we appreciate it. Thank you for stopping in, and we will see you next time. Again, please like and subscribe. It's early in the process. That helps tremendously. And again, if you want to answer this question, who is the first corporate sponsor for the Olympics, you can do so there. Thank you very much.